I honor anyone who is watching this video who is benevolent, sovereign, or at least working on sovereignty, decent being. I honor you for watching. Yeah, I know. I have no delusions about who you might be. I know you're not perfect. I know you have quirks, idiosyncrasies, flaws. I know you've made mistakes, many. I know you don't have your whole life together. But I also know that neither does those who appear to. And when I say that I honor decent beings, benevolent beings, sovereign beings, I'm speaking more to the heart, the base, frequency, vibration, operation, intentions of the person. So, with that being said, I honor you. Last couple of days, you all have heard me talk a lot about the coordinated entry system, these programs, the traps with it, what it really is designed for. And as last night, you all heard me give a very, very responsible disclosure, caution for some. That's wisdom. To the targeted individuals, I want to tell you that I can see clearly how they're using the profiling against you as you attempt to leave these environments the way you have to, because the way they force your hand to. So one of the narratives that will be spent with the paper trail that they are creating is, as most people typically think on the surface, well, and not in the case of the outside shelters, because an outside shelter, that's really a para-shelter, and it's not safe. Okay, it's just not. But more for the interim indoor shelters that's, designed around programs, that 90-day program that most of them have. That it can be extended, but that's what most of them have. Now, so this is the narrative. You should at least, even if you're unhappy with it, you should at least stay in there because at least you have a roof. At least, now here's the assumption, at least you're safe. At least you have a roof, and at least you're safe. That narrative works because of the ignorance, the denial of what sometimes take place in those places. On the surface, even I assume that, well, catch-22, it's a controlled environment. It is highly surveilled. Nothing can happen. It's an assumption. Nothing can happen to you. There's around-the-clock security, albeit sometimes bogus as fuck, but around-the-clock security. Some of them be in on bullshit. Some of them be high. Some of them be. I'm just saying. I'm just keeping it real. Don't take offense to the realities of what's real out there in life. Just because we may not want to hear it, because people get their chonies all knotted up in a bunch. I'm like, well, if the shoe does not fit, then they should be not even tripping on it. The issue is that the shoe fits perfectly. Okay, and they're just perturbed about it being called out. So the assumption is, with it being programmed based, with around the clock staff for security and surveillance, nothing can happen. But that's a lie. I was stolen from in a controlled environment. I'm going to say that again. Me and my son was in one of those locations, because it's not like you do have a room, but you don't get to lock your room, in terms of like lock it to where no one else can get in. And in some cases, you are encouraged to keep it open, um, blah, blah, blah. So, but either way, it happened on a controlled environment, the point that I'm making. We were stalked by some of the very people on the property. You know why I'm sharing this? Because of the assumption that is made when people make the statements. Well, you should at least there's around the clock surveillance. It might be the safest place for you. Not if the enemy is in the house, though. Not if that's where the harm is being done. And people deny it, whatever the reason, whether folks want to um, believe that there's often agendas involved, or just negligence, ignorance, and people, you don't care. I've talked with you all about how oftentimes folks work in these industries and they got chips up on their shoulder. They've been in these industries for a number of years. They've worked in these environments for a number of years, and they develop a chip on their shoulder. They develop certain attitudes, opinions, and views about the people who come through there, especially folks like me. Because then there's this thought they worked 12 jobs. Or let me rephrase that, because no, they didn't. They chose based on their lifestyle. We're all doing that. They chose. Nonetheless, the point that I'm making is, they look at the population. They look at the hustlers that come through there, the scammers, the gamers, work in the system. Look at people like me, which I don't have an angle, but I've learned how to preserve myself through things. So when I see that something is really more designed to exasperate me than to really get me to productive goals, then I start to rearrange how I operate, how I navigate. It's not like I stop. It's just that I rearrange it. I realize that, oh, I see. They want me out here spending my wills 8 hours to no avail, to exhaust myself. I see. No account of people's health, well-being. No account on if it's productive. No, there's no real balance there. And so when I realize that, I simply adjust accordingly. First and foremost, my health. They may not have any concern about my health, but I do. They may not have um, any knowledge about what could possible health conditions that I could have, or my son could have, that would warrant caution, or being careful, mindful, on how I do the things that I do. But I do, because your health is your wealth. I expand that. It won't matter what program I'm in. I'm dead. So some of these people, you all, they have a chip on their shoulder in these programs that work these programs, and if you bother them, if you're somebody who they perceive, I'm going to say it again because there was nothing ever privileged. I'm going to make this 100% clear. There was nothing ever truly privileged about anything that me and my son have went through in these systems. The only people that would actually sit up there and look at it like that, like I said, is people who feel like either they have a personal issue with you, they don't like you. And if that's not the case, either, when that's not the case, it's they feel you're not doing what they would be doing and how they would be doing because they've worked 12 jobs since they were 12 years old. And because their attitudes about life and how they feel life works and the things that they would do under the circumstances, that you have a different approach. And they then formulate their view and opinion of that and classify you and label you as someone who is privileged, which that's just not fitting in these environments. Privileged, um, lazy, um, even entitled. Um, and they then will begin. This is how that so-called appearance of the safety that's ensured in a controlled setting, this is where it starts to die. Because then you start having, whether it's full-fledged, full-on, full-blown agenda, or just an inner circle few. Doesn't really matter. If you're a personality in social media, it makes you extremely high risk of something like that. Because then you have all these people who feel like it's their job. They're unconscious. They're not full on aware people. And then they feel, and I'm not saying it's like a douche, being a douche, a pretentious douche. I'm simply saying as observation. Then they begin to operate in a way. They feel it's their God-given purpose and assignment in life to so-called humble you, which it ain't nobody's job. That's 0% motherfuckers. It ain't nobody's job. I don't care what their title is. I don't care if they're the mayor. I don't care if they're the goddamn president. I don't care. If they're the security guard. I don't care if they are the well-to-do, the haves of a community. I don't care. That's nobody's job. People need to be in their lives and stop worrying about trying to humble somebody that's minding their damn business. The issue, though, is often these will be people who are trolling you if you are a social media influencer. So someone like me or you, if this is you, and you land in this situation, this is entertainment for the lowlives. They older than Moses' asses for some of them. Yes, like children and teenagers and college kids sitting in offices and corners snickling and giggling. That is the vibration of a child. they, like I said, they don't like what you do. They're trolling you on social media, whatever the case it is. They feel some kind of way. So then it becomes their God-given chosen job to try to fuck with your head first and foremost. Oh, you think you know so much, huh? Then how come you didn't know? Blah blah blah. They don't know what the fuck you or I did or didn't know. That's what people get. They don't know. We navigate both worlds. We have to include the practicality, whether we are full on aware of something or not. Period, niggas. Okay. How come they didn't know I was already up to something? But what if I told you they did? What if I told you that they sensed that the very first conversation that they had with you when you suggested the place? How come they don't know what's going to work out? Who's to say? They don't. But what people don't know about energy is if somebody's targeted, a lot is intercepted to fuck with their heads to make them question just that. So it ain't a matter of did they not know. It's a matter of no, this ain't special. These motherfuckers, this ain't. This is sabotage there. This is motherfuckers got the means to be perv. So what happens is then there's an interception to disrupt something that from an energetic perspective was energy is fluid. There's actually nothing fixed. It's always shifting. And you know why? Because it's all based in every now moment, thoughts, words, deeds, actions of all that may be involved in any kind of thread or dynamic. And then when there is interception, corruption, people that have chips on their shoulders in these various arenas, that plays a major role in everything. People looked at me as, and I laughed at some of the jokes because sometimes I can perceive their thoughts. Some of y'all would recall some of the scriptures where it's like, he perceived their thoughts, and he could hear them, right? I perceived. And I have a kimono, right? This kimono I found at a free clothes closet. Okay. It doesn't matter though. Yeah, it really was not y'all business to know. But I'm just saying, like, I can only imagine, because people look at you. I have a kimono. And then I'll wrap a towel around my head. That's my version of stuff. Yes, I have a wave cap, a do-rag, a scarf that I wear, but I'll wrap a towel around my head, especially if I got to go downstairs and stuff like that, or go out and kind of interface with anybody. I'll put a towel around my head if I'm not dressed yet, and I'll have my kimono on. I already know that some of their thoughts and some of their words, I know, was like, who this bitch thinks she is? She thinks she in the Betty Ford clinic. Does she not know where she at? Does she not know that this is a shelter, motherfucker? I get their little snarly, think they funny remarks because I hold myself up because I know. And if you're hearing this and you're somebody who's experienced this, I hope you get to that space to where you know. You are not your environment or circumstances. Honoring and loving yourself and holding yourself in high regard shouldn't be tied to how much money is in your bank account or how much isn't in it. See, that's the problem. Most people's attachment to who they think they are and how they feel about themselves is directly connected to all their material things and situations. They don't value themselves as a being, as a person. If that's not there, they don't feel like they should hold their head up high. They don't feel and then people with that view feel like anyone else shouldn't be holding their head up high. That these people that are going through these situations should be weak and feeble and broken and slumped over, licking bootstraps and ass cracks. Because after all, they're in a situation. And most of these individuals will deny that that's their real view and attitude, but their behavior. Because then they formulate, like I said, these opinions, which then what? They formulate these thoughts and opinions, and those thoughts and opinions lead to them what? It leads to their conduct, whether it's passive aggressive or not. It leads to how they will treat you. It leads to how much they will help you and how much they won't. It leads to them lying, creating false reports to try to create issues for you. It leads to them exploiting your humanness and vulnerability like them and everybody else. I'm going to continue to say this because I do know it as a matter of fact. None of these people, some of these people, you can see it on their clothes and their cars. They're not keeping shit in tip-top shape, bitch, 24 fucking 7, nigga. Play with me. But they will use that against you, target. In these environments, your humanness, even though every last one of them has it. They just don't have people intruding and surveilling them 24 hours. Their every waking move. That's the only fucking difference. Now, when you make decisions, once you experience anything, like if you have, like myself, people stealing, people on these properties following you around, too many occasions, too many incidences to where it's no longer deniable plausibility that they just so happen to blah, blah, blah. So then, are you truly safe? Because for intensive purposes on paper, these shelters are surveilled. Were you? Are you? Are you exposed to things? Because it's the premise of, well, you're not exposed. Well, yes, what if you are? What if you are exposed to all the same things? You're exposed to bed bugs. You're exposed to, disease, sickness. uh, 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 uh. And here's another fun one. Well, you're safe because, if you're just out there renting rooms from people, you don't know what you get. Yeah. And you don't know what you get if you're going into one of those shelters. There's a whole lot of schizos at the courtyard, sleeping right outside. And I don't say that disrespect to the population. I have to be clear because I want it to be known that my discussions and issues is not designed to be assaulting the population that's in need of service. When I make certain statements, I'm referencing the BS system and their agendas and strategies and bullshit. Because in a controlled environment, you have incompetent people sometimes, people sleeping on the job, on their post. It's ignorant and naive to assume and believe that they're foul proof. It's also ignorant and naive to believe that surveillance cameras can't be tampered with. Shut on and off at the just right moment. Oops, tech issue, Wi-Fi went out. While they went into her room and stole. We don't see anything on camera. She's paranoid. Maybe she took it somewhere and she forgot. After all, she's stressed. After all, they are dealing with. You see how they exploit the situations of folks in those situations. They're just stressed. Maybe they forgot. All of that too is designed to fuck with the head and to create the paper trail narrative. All of that. But is it truly safe? Is it truly the safest option if harm is happening on the property? Is it the safest option if it's something outside where it's hundreds of people from the streets with all types of diagnoses, ranging from schizophrenia to all kinds of situations? Is that the safest? Because all these environments, whether it's indoor or outdoor, do people really believe that they're not filled with those very same populations that they try to use as a paper trail against the target when they decide, I'd rather do something else if I can? If I can, I'd rather do something else. Is it a risk? Is so much like the risk of being in those places. If the administration and the authority of the places have a personal issue with you, is that going to be the safest space for you? Is that not a conflict of interest? We assume that the operators of these places, I think that's a silent, unspoken assumption that just because people operate these places, whether they're an intake person, a case manager, all the various titles these people have and functions within these types programs, there's an assumption, an unspoken assumption that by way of what the program is, the social services, humanitarian needs, all that type of stuff, that all of their employees First and foremost, that they ain't just like the motherfuckers. Listen. Oh gosh, they don't want to do this. They don't want to fuck me. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do this. Having a job don't mean somebody ain't cuckoo, cuckoo. Some of these people are just one paycheck away from being right there. Some of them have some of the same conditions that these populations that are displaced, that they love to label and stereotype and stigmatize and target. Some of them worse. I'm going to just keep it on the wall, huh? Some of them worse. And what makes it worse? Just like anything else, you give somebody a title and position and some money and power, it's only going to amplify what the fuck's wrong with them. Per. That's seasoned life experience shit right there. Titles, money, and power is not evil necessarily. No, it's just another source of energy. It's the hands it lands in. That stuff is simply to amplify what's there. Whatever's there. Did you hear it? Whatever's running, whatever script, whatever operating system, whatever issues is operating in the vessel, it is simply going to amplify it. Because that's when people, as my grandma would say, they smell themselves. They got a little change, a little title, a little car, a little 401k, whatever it is, and they smell themselves. And often these are folks that don't go on a journey because they don't have to, honey. They can be cool. You can be crazy when you got money. You can be crazy when you got money. Shit, shit. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing. Everybody say nothing to your ass. You can be nutty. You can be schizo, and they'll call it eccentric because you got money. If you ain't have no money, then there's you ain't got no money or no clout and all those things that could be, utilized for somebody else's benefit, then oh, you need meds. And then if it's somebody that's known, famous with some money, they're eccentric. They're eccentric. See, well, that kind of highlights the bullshit of all of it, doesn't it? Because what's the difference? The point that I'm making, the worldwide unspoken assumption is worldwide. Just because somebody is sitting behind a desk with a smile, albeit fake as fuck, but just because they're sitting behind a desk with a smile, extending a handshake, just because they are in the health industry, then they must be people good. They must know it's an easy job to get. How about that? It was a job. Huh? How about that? It's a job. It's an easy one to get. It was an offer, and it may even come with the highs of being associated as somebody that's a part of the, helps community, helps industry services. There's a level of notoriety that comes with it. Some of these people are stalkers. Having a badge, having a uniform, doesn't mean that these people aren't equally susceptible to crazy ass behavior as anyone else is out there. And just because it's written down on, oh God, just because it's written down, it's like, well, no, see, the rules, the policy, the rules are you can't, well, we know what the rules are. And it still don't mean nothing. It just gives people a way to try to cover their tracks, dot their I's and cross their T's to hide their bullshit. I don't know why there's a worldwide assumption that just because they spent 20 minutes or 1 other hour on all of their meetings coming up doesn't mean that because it was created, that's going to stop people from misconduct. That's gonna stop people from using their prejudices in their position? Who's gonna sit there and measure and monitor that? Half of these people don't want to do their job. Half of them, they just want it to look like they are. They just want to sit up and they 8 hour job is they can just sit up and smoke and talk and gossip and shit. So were you or whoever you're thinking of, are they really safer in those controlled environments when that they're being stolen from? Hold on. Okay. As I was saying, let's wrap her up. I know I said a lot in a roundabout way, but hopefully the point that I'm making came out kind of clear. I'm aware, targets out there, of what they're doing and what they're trying to make it look like with your instability as they do the things that they have been doing in the background to contribute. As I said, in my case, when we were getting close to anything to do with any stabilization, this is when they start to pull the rug, when they see that the stalking, the harassment, the witches, the warlocks, the wizards, and all that shit isn't working anymore, and you're able to get through that, then they start to pull the support. They start to pull the resources. That's one of their main big playbook moves. Okay, you're no longer being moved or affected by the bullshit, them stealing, them tampering with your space, all of that stuff. Then they start to pull the very support that they provided. Okay, which is why people are in those places in the first place, because they are trying to get themselves on their feet. All I can offer, I don't have all the answers. I myself is somebody who's dealing with all of the stuff. Okay, I don't know what's going to happen with me and my son in any given moment. And this is what it is right now. Okay, because we are not, even for these interim programs, we are not a classic profile case that fits the description of how they assist the population. And so they're going to always want to attempt to separate us or process us differently, um, things like that. So this is the struggles and the troubles that I have, even with trying to deal with those programs. Most folks want to give me a whole lot of list of those programs. They don't really get the full gist of what I'm dealing with. They don't have a lot of sensitivity towards the situation. So I get that. All I can offer y'all as somebody that's dealing with the same stuff is, again, try to keep as much documentation and records as you can on what you experience just for you. And try to keep yourself as grounded as you can and do, I know it's cliche, it sounds cliche, but doing the best that you can with what you're being dealt, what you're dealing with when it's systemic. Okay, and the world isn't aware of it being systemic, and you're trying to hold, care for yourself, care for your children. If you're being harmed and you know that you are, I don't think anybody who would necessarily want to stay, they would want to try to figure something else out if they feel like they're being sabotaged or there's not the help there and they're being tampered with, and their space. So I will keep y'all posted. I'm still looking. Okay, so if any of you all know, Facebook me. I think I have my Facebook link here. Um, I'm in the Las Vegas area. If any of you who cares, and you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, um, send me a Facebook message, okay, and let me know. It's me and my adult disabled son, and we need more than 3 weeks, but I'm saying that we need 3 weeks because at least that gets us to the end of the month, and I have to do day to day. Okay, ideally, I know we need about 3 months. Okay, but I'm gonna start with, we're looking for 3 weeks because right now we don't have the monies to front. So we're looking for somebody that's willing to work with us for that 3 weeks, and then I can compensate for that 3 weeks, and beyond if necessary once that comes. I know it's a long shot, but I'm just saying that's what we are in need of. Somebody maybe with discernment, a heart, and the means to assist. Okay. Facebook me. That's going to be the fastest way. I think you can. I don't think you have to request to do it. So um, Facebook me and I will respond. Okay, gotta go.